Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give it a minute so that folks can trickle in from the waiting room. All right, I think that is everyone. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar. Today's policy webinar is on home repair programs. And before we get started, I just want to quickly talk to you about the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania. We are a statewide coalition working to increase access to safe, decent, and affordable homes for all Pennsylvanians. Webinars are free for members, so become a member today. You can do that by visiting housingalliancepa.org/become a member, or you can contact us at info@housingalliancepa.org for more information. All right, quick logistics run. Today's webinar will run approximately for 30 minutes, and that includes time for Q&A. We encourage you to leave questions to our incredible group of speakers today. If you do want to ask the presenters a question, please use the Q&A function. You can find that at the bottom right hand of your screen. The chat function is only to ask the Housing Alliance staff logistical questions about the webinar and to introduce yourself. So please go ahead, tell us your name, your organization, and where you're from in the chat. We will also email you a recording of this presentation and any associated materials in approximately a week's time. You can also check out our events page for updates on upcoming webinars and other events. Just scan the QR code on the screen and it will come right up. All right, and with that, I want to thank all our speakers for being part of this webinar and for sharing their knowledge and expertise with our audience today. Please make sure to leave questions for them. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Aaron Zappia, who is the legislative consultant for the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania, to get us started.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Welcome, everybody. Here we are again. We have done one of these webinars. I think it's been some years now with Senators Argall and Saval. So we are 4 years now into the story of whole home repair, now known as another name, the Pennsylvania Home Preservation Program, most likely. So we want to fill you in on what's going on with legislation that is out there right now, that is in the pipeline, and efforts to continue a home repair program in Pennsylvania. So we have with us today Senator David Argall, represents the 29th Senatorial District. A rather rural district with some small towns. Dave is the Majority Policy Committee Chairman. Senator Nikil Saval is from the 1st Senatorial District, which covers much of the city of Philadelphia. Senator Saval, this was kind of his brainchild back in, I want to say, 2022, maybe even before that. And these two members have teamed up to try to continue this program and continue to develop it here in the state. So why don't we start out with Senator Saval, if you don't mind, can you share with us where does the legislation stand right now? Where are we at in the process?
Absolutely. So thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here with my good colleague and friend, Senator Argall, and his team. We've all worked very closely together over the years, and also with the Housing Alliance and all the members of the Housing Alliance on this call, some of whom have been administering the whole home repairs program and have been advocates for the home preservation program. So just, I think it's helpful to ground us on, on where we were and where this all came from, that we have had, an active home repair program since 2022 statewide. Of course, many different counties and municipalities have had local ones, but in 2022, we won $125 million in American Rescue Plan funds to create and launch the whole home repairs program. Nearly every county in Pennsylvania applied to administer the program, 64 out of 67 counties. In 2023, DCD dispersed those funds to counties to launch home repair initiatives or enhance ones they already had. The demand was overwhelming. Many counties opened and closed their wait lists for, very, in short order. There are thousands of people now, about 18,000 people on wait lists, which understates the need because many people close their wait lists as almost as soon as they open them. And we have stories now of people who have benefited in every county across the Commonwealth, seniors who can age in place, families who can weatherize their homes, people with limited mobility who are able to modify their homes rather than being forced to find another place to live. And last year, knowing that we needed to create a state version of this program, Senator Argall and I introduced the Pennsylvania Home Preservation Program. There's also a House companion. Representatives Lindsay Powell, Tim Twardzik, and Brandon Markosik are the co-sponsors on that one, which would take the most successful aspects of whole home repairs and scale it to the level of state funding. At the moment, as with the previous bill, our whole home repairs program, both bills were introduced with bipartisan support. House Bill 1650 and Senate Bill 876 are active. House Bill 1650 passed out of the House with a vote of 122 to 80. And both bills are in the Senate's Urban Affairs and Housing Committee. I believe both Senator Argall and I are on that committee, the ranking Democratic member. And by the end of this year, the full amount of ARPA funds for whole home repairs ought to have been dispersed. I'll note that the governor recently released a Pennsylvania Housing Action Plan, and in each of the 18 roundtables convened for that plan, home repairs were raised as an essential component of any housing plan by participants. We know that the need and support for this program is wide, bipartisan, and frankly, we just need to bring it across the finish line for state funding in this action plan and just generally preservation as the kind, in the kind that we've sort of outlined has been noted as a major priority. And so we're confident that there's widespread support for this. That's where things stand.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Argall, you come from a district that is seemingly very different from the city of Philadelphia. Pretty much a quintessential Pennsylvania towns that were built on the coal industry, and may now be searching for the reiteration of their economy. Can you share with us, why is this issue important to you? Why should other members of the House and Senate, why should this be important to them as well?
The economy of the three counties that I represent, Schuylkill, Carbon, Luzerne, was based on the coal industry, the railroads, the associated industries, as you'd indicated. But most people don't realize that began to decline about the time of the First World War. And so we are talking about 100 years plus of economic challenges. With those challenges came massive population displacement and some pretty incredible housing issues, to the point where I represent communities that used to have 30,000 that now have about 5,000. And so when there's a fire in those towns, it's usually not a single house, it's 10 interconnected old mining houses, and they weren't built to last. And so in some cases, the solution is demolition and replacement. In other cases, with Nikil and I have worked very closely together to rehab. And so some are salvageable, some are not. And the district that I represent really welcomed the new dollars, and I'm hopeful that we can do it again. Our challenge is, since the Senator Saval and I first started talking about this, the overall budget, the situation hasn't gotten better. And so with tighter budgets, people are sharpening their pencils more, and it's harder to bring any dollars to the districts for issues like that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It means it's more difficult. And Nikil, I have to say, there's, while we represent very different political constituencies on this issue, we're 100% in agreement. And I just figured out that you and I have one other thing in common. My mother was a typing teacher from the 1950s to the 1990s, And when I saw that contraption on your desk sitting behind you, unlike my grandchildren, I actually know what that thing is.
My screen is frozen. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
We can hear you, Aaron. You're
Yeah.
good.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of technical issues on my end. Um, to not put too fine a point on it, the state is in a challenging fiscal situation. So as we advocate for a program like this, um, I think it's good to be mindful of what we're facing budget wise in Pennsylvania. Can we kind of touch on that a little bit, just very broadly, so people have an understanding of our fiscal challenges?
Just the basics. And when I teach a class, at local college, I'm always surprised, but most of my college students don't understand the difference between Washington and Harrisburg. We have to balance our budget. They don't. And so when we have more money going out than coming in, that stresses everything. That's when the budget makers get their knives out and start chopping programs, even good ones. And so that's the big picture. And I suspect that's what the appropriations committee, as we talk, is in session today and tomorrow on public hearings. That's the big dark cloud that's hanging over the Capitol right now.
Right, right. And I'm an optimist. I want to be optimistic about it, but I think it's important to look at this in taking a long view. Right, we've missed a few budgets. We started out with 125. We've gone after 50, which is much less. But I don't want folks to lose hope in this. And I think what we have now is a track record established, right? We have, I think at the last count, and goes back to September of last year, but 3,177 homes were completed and 90 million was committed to projects. And this, again, back in September of 2025. Can you each share with us maybe some specific examples, even if they're generalized in your district, the types of projects that you've seen done, and kind of speak to the job that the local administrators of the program have done with whole home repair?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there is, one, I'll choose one. It's not actually from my district, but it's close. And this is one from Southwest Philadelphia. And, I've met one of the recipients, and her name is Dominique. And she is a single mom. She owned her home in Southwest Philadelphia. And she was excited when she bought it and was excited to have a place for her two young sons that was welcoming, safe, and that was her own. Her house, though, had electrical problems. I want to say it was built somewhere between 1940 and 1970. At first, the outlets went out, and then in the dead of winter, the baseboard heating. And she tried using space heaters, but that was both not safe and also made her energy bills spike dramatically. And her home was so persistently cold that one night she packed up her sons and headed to an Airbnb to keep them safe. So this is someone who owns her home and still finds it safer and in some ways not exactly economical, but the only thing she can do to go to an Airbnb. In that Airbnb, she searched for emergency home repairs online, and then she was directed to the whole home repairs program, which was administered locally here in Philadelphia by the Housing Development Corporation and the Philadelphia Energy Authority. She filled out an application, and a few months later, she got a call for an inspector to arrange for an inspector to look at her home. In addition to electrical work, the bricks in the back of her home were separating. the beams beneath her kitchen floor were rotted. And the work was so extensive that without whole home repairs program, which again is simply that, is designed to treat the whole home, not just individual portions of it, but to braid together sources of funding to make everything work, she would have been deferred for support. Instead, skilled workers replaced her kitchen floor, did stucco work in the back to stabilize the masonry. They installed energy efficient heat pumps for heating and cooling. Her home is now fully electric. She has cooling for the first time. She and her sons can stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer, while paying just a fraction of what she originally spent before on utility bills. And so now, without having to worry about how they'll stay safe in their home, Dominique and her children can focus on the things that matter, that focus on school and work and spending time together as a family. So that was really an important story for me. I mean, I've actually heard, I also visited a person in Allegheny County, Kelly, who she had a very big family. They were small business owners. They had business roots that ran pretty deep and long, and they had major critical repairs that her home needed. And she described just waiting for her home to be condemned. But then she was able to get access to whole home repairs dollars. I think it was in the scale of like $40,000. And so she was able to stay in her community. Actually, the construction, the remediation work and repair work were done by local builders, I mean, local to the actual neighborhood. And so it was, so it's a dramatic change in the whole trajectory of her life in her home.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mary Beth to jump in here because I know she's been really active in dealing with this issue on behalf of my constituency. I'm just going to add that this, blight it's like a cancer. It spreads. But if we can get one house fixed, frequently that leaky roof leaks into the next home if they're attached. And we've seen it again and again and again. You fix one, the people next door might be a little bit more likely to get out their paintbrush if they can afford to do it themselves. And so you're not just dealing with one or two, you can really improve a whole neighborhood. But go ahead, Mary Beth.
Thanks, Senator. Yeah, just real briefly, I know we have some folks from Schuylkill Community Action on the call this morning who administers our whole home repairs program in the county. And we've had disabled veterans, we've had senior citizens, single parents, just similar to what Senator Saval had mentioned. Same kind of situations. There was one in my hometown, I know in Girardville, that probably was on its way to being, abandoned in a couple of years because the gentleman couldn't afford the upkeep and the maintenance on the property. So it probably would have been one more vacant home sitting that the municipality would have, at the end of the day, become responsible for dealing with it. But so many of the people in our program, again, like Senator Saval said, they were not even eligible for weatherization because the homes were in, such bad shape. There are minimum requirements in weatherization. And some of them were not even eligible for that until home repairs came in and did some work on their homes. So now they're at least eligible to proceed into getting their home weatherized and, more energy efficient and, everything like Senator Saval said about the woman in Philly. So it is, we have seen firsthand what the program has done to try and keep people in their homes. And, and Senator Argall said, keep, blight from spreading. If we can prevent it with this program, and that's what was so attractive to us in the beginning, that it could be another tool as a blight prevention tool, to help keeping it out of communities. It might just be one house at a time, but hey, it's one house and it's one house less that we have to see abandoned, and we have to see people on the street looking for housing.
And if I could just quickly chime in here, and thank you, Mary Beth, for sharing that, and Senator Argall. I learned so much from both of you about the wide scale and potential of this program in a way but allowing people to get weatherization, in ensuring that blight does not spread or kind of intervening in the blight cycle. Senator Argall, as you remember, we made a sign that specifically for you that said the blight stops here. that has major implications for the economic health of our Commonwealth and in various communities. If you're able to stabilize a community, if you're able to cut, this isn't just a new program. This is a program that fills in gaps. And so it allows for efficiency. So if weatherization dollars aren't getting spent, that's not a good thing. That's wasteful. And whole home repairs dollars is meant to kind of enable some of the bureaucratic blockages to be unblocked, within government itself. And of course, that has real tangible effects in people's lives.
100%. And, something that I always like to tell people is the program is not just for the homeowner that's currently there, right? We can think about housing as infrastructure. And I think that's what everybody's kind of been saying on this call. It's about the next family that moves in, the first-time home buyer that now has another affordable home on the market instead of a house that's going to be condemned. So, I think there's a lot of different angles that we can take to sell this program, right? And I think that might lead us into what we always like to talk about is what do we do now, right? So we have two bills. We have the House bill and the Senate bill. They're both in the Senate Urban Affairs Committee. We have folks on the call from across the state. I'm going to assume there's a lot of administrators who have been working the program for these past 4 years. So without, we tell you this stuff all the time, but I want you to hear it again, and I'll let the two legislators on the call answer this question. But what do we do right now? What can people do?
My predecessor called it the squeaky wheel theory of government. You got to squeak. I mean, if Senator Saval and I hear an issue from one constituent, that's important. If we hear it from 1,000 constituents, it's a hell of a lot more important. And this comes down to simple math. The Senate leadership, the House leadership, if they just hear from me and Nikil, yeah, I'm murdering Senator Saval's name. If they just hear it from this odd couple, the two of us, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, it's those guys again." If they hear it from 40 of our colleagues, that's much more important. And so the people need to know the good things that this program has done. They need to see it. They need to feel it. And if you don't, we're in trouble.
Yeah, just underscoring. I mean, it's in committee, right? It's in the House. Both bills are in the Housing Committee in the Senate. There are members in that Housing Committee who have constituents who have been helped by this program. I mean, you know them as administrators. I've already named. I saw that Action Housing's on this call. I saw that. They're the Schuylkill County administrators on the. We have their administrators here who have served constituents of the elected officials who can move this legislation. And in some cases, they maybe need to know how impactful this has been in their communities and how much more work there is to do. And so I think the value of this is critical. And this bill would take a lot of the good work from whole home repairs and make it work for something on the order of what we've been asking for, around 50 million or what have you. And so I think there's that's the way to do it. You got to squeak. So
100%. Yeah. Make them see it and feel it, as Senator Argall said. And you're armed now, right? You've been doing this program now for a while. You have projects that have been completed. You have stuff to show. So invite members to come and see, and you have stuff that you can actually point to, physical realities here, not just numbers on a page. So we're getting close to the end of our half hour here. We have just a couple of questions in the chat. So how does Governor Shapiro's recent announcement of $1 billion housing plan affect the outlook? And what kind of programming or connections should organizations make to best leverage this opportunity? So in short, does the governor's housing plan help us?
Well, yes, in one sense. I mean, the obviously this number, the 1 billion bond issue would have to happen, and it has its own legislative component. But were we to get something, some kind of borrowing power, um, preservation is at least a key component of the plan, and that's not surprising, right? And there is this there home preservation is the vehicle for continuing to preserve our homes and enable repairs throughout the Commonwealth. So it could lessen some of the fiscal constraints that we face. Of course, this is a topic of debate, right? And so I know that Appropriations Committee members are going to be having hearings over the nature of that infrastructure spending over the course of the next 2 weeks. And so, but were it to be realized in some capacity, it would enable some amount of funding potentially for a program like this. But it's may not be, it's not the only source, but it could be a major one.
Okay. A question that may be a bit more administrative, maybe Chris could answer this, maybe even Mary Beth. Any proposed extension to the performance period, which is currently ending 12/26 for current whole home repair funds?
How did I get so lucky to get picked on, Aaron? I'm going to throw a question back, actually. Isn't that a federal deadline? Doesn't the fact that it's federal money come into play with those deadlines? I don't know the answer. I'll be honest. I don't know the exact answer, but I'm thinking the fact that it's federal money and those federal guidelines kind of dictate it.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that's the case, but we can certainly follow up.
Yeah, I think that had something to do with the deadlines on the program, because I think the Commonwealth has to meet deadlines with the feds, if I remember correctly.
When someone is saying that you are correct.
Am I okay?
Yeah, there's a couple of folks. So Mary,
all right.
He's always correct.
What do you know?
He always knows.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to 11:30. We had planned a half an hour today. And, I want to thank, as always, Senator Argall, Senator Saval, for your leadership on this issue, for championing this, keeping it alive. We are hopeful, and we're going to continue to work. We're going to continue to work to try and get this done. So with that, I think we'll thank everybody for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Likewise. Bye-bye.